We actually have a fairly long and truly wonderful agenda ahead of us. You don't want to miss any of it. And most of us are going to try to do something remembering. Does anyone remember Dwight Eisenhower? So he had a beautiful set of quotation, and one of them, I think my wife thinks that it should apply to me. He says, an intellectual is someone who uses unnecessary words to describe things he doesn't know. You have heard my wonderful friend Khalid talk about venture capital. We're now going to shift to exactly what he mentioned, which is financing through alternative means, if you will. Ready? Happy and cozy? Okay. So, angel investing. I had actually a problem once in Alexandria, my hometown, where people absolutely were convinced they have wings. And yet, today they are referred to as FFF. So we know that it was friends and family, and now it is friends and family and? Exactly. And that's why maybe their numbers as well as the money is decreasing. But the numbers are actually quite impressive, 120 to 180,000. They invest approximately the same amount, so $20 billion, $22 billion, but in 30 to 40 times more companies than venture capitalists. And obviously the process that they go through to make an investment is quite different from the one that Khalid has shared with us today. And as you will hear in about 2 minutes. And the third source of funding is crowdfunding. I think with the passage of the JOB Act and with this absolutely extraordinary year in 2012, where crowdfunding has actually raised 3 times as much money as the year before, $320 million, 18,000 projects, 177 countries, it has really become an amazing, amazing source to tap. By whom? Well, you look at the names here, you'd notice that practically all of them are technology companies, right? You know, video games and what have you. And the one on top is the most fascinating, $10 million. These were, as Khalid mentioned about incubators, graduates of Y Combinator, and they tried to raise money, they could not raise any. They had this GPS watch, which also helped in well-being and orientation and heartbeats and what have you. So they went to Kickstarter and they offered, and of course, you can't raise the money as venture capital, right? It's got to be something for social venture. So what they offered is the first 1,000 to sign up, they will give them a watch for $100. They raised $100,000 in 6 hours and then went on to raise $10 million. Great source of financing to tap. Now, I'm going to shift for a minute and talk very quickly about how 2012 has been like in the Arab region. Is that okay? The amount of money that was invested last year was orders of magnitude higher than the money that was invested in 2011. 2012 has been an awesome, awesome year for venture capital in the Arab region. You look at Saudi Arabia, quite extraordinary. Now, I would say as a footnote that if you add all of these numbers, there will be about $200 million. And one of the Middle Eastern countries has only 6 million people, and its venture capital industry is actually $2 billion a year. Which one is it? Israel. Yeah, $2 billion venture capital a year. One of the reasons why venture capital has taken off is that the attention to entrepreneurs has never been, ever in the history of the Arab world, any stronger than it is today. Oasis 500 was launched 2 years ago. 700 companies have been trained. 51 companies have been financed. The financing is $22,000. We lost 3 of them, but at the same time, 20 of them have actually received follow-on financing at valuation that are somewhere between 10 times and 100 times the valuation that we came in at. Now, it doesn't mean that, that everything is going to be fine, but I think that in Jordan is a small country, and it's not a rich country, and yet that program has been absolutely extraordinary. If you look again at 2012, it's probably something to be proud of about how our community, whether it is based here or based in the Arab world, has achieved some really amazing milestones. Cloudera, $750 million market valuation. They actually kept that number under wrap until fairly recently. And Amr Awadallah, AAA, is going to talk to you about how you can actually grow a company to $750 million in about 3 years. ShifaMed is an absolutely extraordinary incubator created by Amr Salahieh, who we are lucky to have with us today. And he will talk to you about how he's using ideas that match the market needs, exactly like Khalid has described, to create companies that he's the CEO of, and how he managed in 2 years to have an exit for $230 million. And that's Maya. Fleury, and I'm sorry that Salman is not with us today, Salman Khalifa, but this company's numbers are absolutely astounding, $100 million in revenues. Khalid, I believe your company, Inner West, is an investor, $100 million in revenues, or maybe even more, and growing by leaps and bounds, 80,000 customers that effectively tell the customers about how people are using their telephone so that you can sell them more, in a nutshell. Affectiva. So Rana Kalyubi is a PhD. She was at MIT. She and her co-founder actually tried to create the company. It was a little bit difficult. Anyways, they left in 2009. And it's an amazing company. Basically, by looking at your computer or your iPad, it can tell you about your mood, about how you feel, and potentially maybe become happier. They raised $12 million last year as well. Namshi, I don't know if Muhammad Maki is with us today. Where's Muhammad? Alhamdulillah, salam. So Muhammad is here, and so he came from Dubai. Thank you very much for this long distance travel. And he can tell you about this amazing company that seems to be about #1 in fashion, e-commerce in the Middle East. We have Dr. Ali Ismail is where? Alhamdulillah, salama as well. I mean, he has raised $2.3 million to create a fascinating company. Oferna, Abdullah Asal, who was a GSB and was financed actually by angels here, is now the #1 daily offer company in Egypt, and so on and so forth. So really, really quite extraordinary set of success. Grand 2 is actually based here in San Francisco, but I mentioned the two at the bottom. The two at the bottom are actually the #1 and #2 winners of the MIT Arab Business Plan competition. Both of them are women. Perihan Abu Zaid of Qabila was actually chosen as woman entrepreneur. And the beauty about these two companies is that they are being chased by investors to give them money, which they have actually turned down. One of them is profitable, and the other one would like to get, if I may say so, better terms in terms of equity as compared to what she had previously. We are also lucky today to have the two co-founders of Adi and Nudge, who are going to share with you how they created their companies, how they benefited from the ecosystem created by Stanford, how they have managed to raise the money, and where they would like to take the company from here. Now, we have today with us also the man that I consider to be the #1 angel investor here in the US and in MENA, who has helped so many entrepreneurs through mentorship and with financing to grow. I'm not going to mention their names, but many of them are actually here, and that's my good friend, Youssri, Helmy. You have it? Okay.
It is on. Now it's on? Yes, now it's on. I'm challenged with these, so I'll test them first. Oh, okay. So before I get started, I just wanted to mention the one at the bottom actually is Kinotopia, and Amir is here somewhere. And Amir is an old friend, and we had a chance to work together about 15, 17 years ago. And I'm very proud to have him featured, to see that he was featured on Steve Blank's blog as one of the necessary tools for a startup. It's a prototyping tool, UI elements to get any mobile app out and quickly. Impressive guy. If you have a chance to chat with him, he's not a big talker though. So my part, so thanks for being introduced as the #1 angel. I guess by age, I am the #1 angel in Egypt. I started in the 80s, and I've been doing this for a while. And I like to think of angels as friends who help get something started early. So after Osama's presentation and then Khaled's presentation, one has a lot of graphics and the other one has a lot of science. Mine has neither. So it's 3 lines per page and 3 slides. Angel investing is where an angel is, I think, is someone you go to talk to as a friend when you're starting from ideating onwards. Onwards means until you get to the first series. After that, they could or could not, or may not become a board member and continue to support the company. And I've had the chance to do both. So it depends. So where do you find an entrepreneur? As Khaled said, I mean, yes, you can summarize it down to people and ideas. I wish I could summarize it down to people only. It really boils down to somebody with a passion. So to me, investing is about finding good people doing interesting things. I will only work with something that I like doing because this is something to add in the day. And it's time away from your family, and it better be interesting. If good things happen and if they're interesting, they will have financial returns, hopefully, but it's really not the first priority. Time is the most precious resource, so it better be spent doing something fun, I should say. So where do I look? Friends, family, colleagues, ex-colleagues, TechWadi, whatever. The club, shopping. I was doing training, and I convinced the trainer to leave Equinox and start up his own CrossFit company 4 years ago. It's doing very well now. So it's, if you see an entrepreneur doing something that he loves to do and you can help him scale, then yeah, whatever. Technology is cool, but other things are also interesting. My 99% is technology. I don't do gyms that much. So where do you find them again? Where you find angels is you look in your Rolodex. Hopefully now that you know me, you'll reach out. Where you find good ideas is, I mean, there's crowdfunding sites, which is cool. There's AngelList. They've done a terrific job. Started from nothing a couple of years ago, and now everybody has to go check if that person is on AngelList, and it's building its own reputation system, if you will, with referrals and comments and entrepreneurs being voted on and investors being voted on and companies recruiting their best people from that website. I think it's going to be an amazing location. And I mean, now it is, and I think it's going to be an essential website for anybody doing any startup in the very near future. So going back to people, you get what you're looking for. So if you're looking for, you will attract whatever entrepreneur you're looking for. Meaning, if you're the type that wants somebody that just does the lab work, then you will do that. But to launch a company, remember that it will have to be out of the building. People will have to go out, and they will have to start selling things. So what you look for the team, and the team. The ideas at the beginning are very fluid. The team should know what they're talking about, but they don't have to be set on doing that thing. Actually, it could be wrong for a team to overhook, to stay on the same idea for too long. I have people that I really like and really respect, and they're very talented, and we've ideated for months and months and months, and then everybody got tired, frankly. And others which I prefer, it's somebody that does a little bit of planning and then goes out, tries a couple of bullets, and then comes back in the lab and tries again. Shift or not, whatever the outcome from these bullets, did it excuse me, did we hit a customer or not? So it has to be an in and out loop. There's no such thing as being inside only. There's no such thing as, some people are doing the exact opposite now. I'm beginning to see a trend of people who read the 4 steps to the epiphany and they're out selling stuff that cannot be built. So somebody needs to go back and make sure that they actually can deliver what they're promising. And that goes back to the team, because when you don't have a balance in the team, having an angel, if you're a techie, if you're a deep techie, and having an angel bringing in a little bit of business expertise, I find at least easier. If all the company has is a group of salespeople and the execution is challenging, I don't think that would go too far, to put it that way. Of course, I'm happy to be proven wrong. I've been proven wrong many, many times. But generally, if you have the core intellectual property creation in the company, then you have something to start from. That could change. So I like to think that I am smart money. Many people don't share that, but so what? No, seriously, what do you expect? I mean, why do you go for somebody who's frankly going to annoy you a little bit and call you weekly and, I mean, give you $10,000 and bug you about them for 10,000 hours? It's supposed to be useful. You're supposed to go in with a concept, and then we'll have a coffee and think about it, and then come back later. I've worked, I mean, because I've been around for a very long time, half the battle is being there. So I had the opportunity to work with teams that are at air stage, which is nothing. We have a hammer, let's find the nail for it, to fantastic, terrific teams like the Cloudera guys who know everything, and they just went out and nailed it. And there I just watched, and I was just lucky being in the deal and didn't complain about it. But generally, for angels, I like to be involved in the ideation stage, if it makes sense. If the idea is not interesting and I have no value in terms of where the company is going, then if it's about a check, there are VCs for that, and they're professionals. And I could put my fund hat and we can talk about VC funding. But for the angel component of it, it has to be interesting. The second thing is the recruitment. Again, Khaled said everything. Actually, in that condensed presentation, it's a paper. Thank you. So the recruitment part, having good angels with a good reputation does help you bring good people, because people you wanna hire good people. You're a startup, yes, you have a good idea, but it's all in the air. And having somebody who has gray hair and pretends he knows what he's talking about does help give credibility to the company. So yes, it does help with the recruitment. On the execution side, having been in too many wars, I have a few stories to share, and usually that is helpful. So help on just who to talk to, when to walk away, not necessarily right or wrong, but just telling stories, really. And last is strategic support. When you go to any VC, they'll tell you that their best deals come from referrals. I wouldn't refer a deal to somebody if I'm invested in it and did not believe in it. And that lends the credibility, again, of the investor. So that shortcuts a lot of cycles from the VC's due diligence process. So having the right angels on your team just gives you a leg up, frankly, on other competition. And you will have a better product, hopefully by definition, because you've worked with people who know what they're talking about. With that, I'll pass it to an actual entrepreneur who's done terrifically well in the past few years. So Cloudera, Osama mentioned them a few minutes ago. When I met Amr many years ago now, 5, 6, 7 years ago, first time he said big data, and I said, what? And he said, you know, data when it becomes too big to put in a box. So this was back in what, 07, 08? And I scratched my head, Googled that word, yielded big data, you know, like big and data, nothing. So I was very, very lucky to have met him when I did. It was very educational. And that's one of the deals that somebody sends you when you've been good the Christmas before, I guess. So with that, Amr is here. So please give him a hand.
Thanks for the nice introduction, Youssri. This presentation will be about myself and about Cloudera, the formation, and some lessons I learned that I would like to share with you as well. So first, very briefly about me. You can read the details on the slide, and you'll have the slides later on. But one key point I want to stress is I came to the US in 1995 at Stanford University. And my goal, since I was born until when I came, was to get my PhD and go back to Egypt and teach. I never had the inclination ever of being an entrepreneur or starting companies. Stanford and the Bay Area at large, they spoil you from that respect, right? You see all of these companies. The day I landed in the Bay Area, coming from the airport, I mean, seeing companies like HP, Cisco, Oracle, companies I only heard about in the past, literally in front of my eyes. It started there. but it didn't stop there. Stanford was very, very instrumental in teaching about entrepreneurship, and you will hear this later on, I think, from other speakers as well. And I hope that we in the Middle East can start doing the same thing. We need to teach people. It can be taught. It can be taught, and we should be investing in that. So that's the key point of that slide. Cloudera is my second startup, not my first one. My first one was a company called VivaSmart Aptivia. You can read the story here. That was a company, again, being at Stanford and seeing everything going on. I actually dropped out from my PhD program. My dad was not very happy about that. He really wanted me to finish the PhD. Within a year, that company was acquired by Yahoo. It was a good exit. We owned a big chunk of the company. Yet my dad still insisted I need to go back and finish my PhD, even though I already had millions of dollars in my bank account. That was very important for him, which I did do. I did finish my PhD. So he's happy now. I was at Yahoo for 8.5 years, and this is something that I think we also need to start seeing happen in the Middle East is when it comes to trained executives, whether that be on the engineering, management, product side, we need to have this channel for them to leave their organizations where they're already making very, very good salaries and take the leap of faith of jumping in to work on a startup. Incubators are good for the students coming out of schools. You're not going to see a trained executive with many, many years of experience going to an incubator. It's just, you don't see that. And we need something like that. So that's why I have this slide here. You can read the details on the slide. But the key there is actually Excel Partners, which offered me this role of what we call the EIR, Entrepreneur in Residence. They were very, very instrumental in the formation of this company. Not only did they help me with seeing what's the right next thing to work on. Actually, I had the idea going in, but I had a couple of other ideas. And being there, I was able to vet out which idea is the one I should be betting the next 10 years of my life on. And they also helped a lot in terms of connections with other potential partners to help me with my business. So that's really what I call smart money. Smart money, they help you in this way. It's way more than just giving you a check. Again, we need something like this in the Middle East. Sorry about that. So the Cloudera story so far, 2008 is when we started. We had 4 founders at that time. Mike Olson, who is currently our CEO, was from Oracle. Jeff Hammerbacher, who is currently our chief scientist from Facebook. Myself and Christoph Bisceglia from Google, who now he left Cloudera and started another company called Webby-Data. Just 4 people. That was 4 years ago. If you skip to the last bullet point, we are now at 300 plus people at Cloudera across North America, Europe, and Asia. Hopefully we'll expand a bit more in the coming years. Total money raised 100 and what? If you add all of these numbers, I think 140, I think, something like that. 140 million raised in the company. So when you see numbers like that and this much money, that brings me to the next slide, which is, doesn't this mean you got so much dilution in the creation of the company? And my advice to entrepreneurs here, please, please, please don't obsess over dilution. Don't obsess over the share, the angle of the slice in the pie. The angle doesn't mean anything, right? My first startup, VivaSmart, which I sold to Yahoo for 9 million. Yes, I and my co-founder, we owned more than 50% of the company. We only sold it for 9 million, right? So at the end of the day, the area of the slice is really what matters. And every time we get this new cash infusion into the company, that's where we get more muscle to grow into a much bigger pie. And really, when I was creating VivaSmart, I was very, very naive and obsessed about the dilution thing. Now I obsess about how can I create the biggest company I can create. And that's how we, all of you as entrepreneurs and investors, should be approaching this problem. Very briefly about Cloudera, just so you know what we do. Cloudera is an enterprise software company. We sell software. That software allows organizations to deal with data. And what makes us special is our approach is 10 times more flexible and 10 times more scalable, 10 times more economical than any of the solutions that existed before us. I usually speak for an hour about this. So if you want to learn more about big data and the software we provide, please approach me after this presentation. But it really boils down to these three keywords: flexibility, scalability, and economics. The culture we have at the company, and culture is very important. It's one of the key things of building a successful large company is having a good culture. Some of you might have heard about the Google culture of don't be evil or not be evil, something like, I can't remember the exact words. I say this is our culture, and usually when I start by describing our culture, when we do onboarding to new employees, I say our culture is don't be stupid. That's really what it is. And it boils down to these 5 things. Do the right thing, which is very hard. Prioritize to pick out what's the right thing you should be working on without being asked, and that is initiative. We can't have people just sit there waiting for their manager to tell them what to do. We're moving so fast for that. We can't afford that. If you don't have people who have initiative on your team, you're not going to succeed. The right way, and right way here has many angles to it. One of them is obviously making the right choice that not only serves the company in the short term, but also serves it in the long term, which sometimes can be very hard. With others, which is about teamwork. And last but not least, for the customers. You always have to start with the customer in mind and work backwards from there. Don't work on a technology just because it's cool. That's not going to succeed. You're working on a technology because it's solving a real customer problem, and you work backwards from there. It doesn't mean that you can't be innovative. In fact, I love this quote from Henry Ford, the creator of the cars. He said, when I asked people what they wanted, they said we wanted faster horses. Faster horses. Because it's wrong to ask them what they want. What you want to do is ask them, what's your problem? And then they tell you, my problem is to get from point A to point B really quick. And then you, as the entrepreneur, solve that problem in an innovative way. But don't create a solution, don't go create a solution for a problem that does not exist. So always start with the customer in mind. I'm going to skip this slide. Our business is based on open source software, which is free software. So how do we make money from free software? Very interesting topic. If you have questions about it, find me later on in the day. I'm going to conclude with this slide, which is some of the lessons that I learned and advice from being at Cloudera and seeing this company from the beginning to where we are today. Number 1, make sure you are super, super, super passionate about the idea, about the company that you're forming and what it's doing. Because you are going to be working really hard. And I lost so much hair and grew so much white hair in the startup. And you won't be able to sustain that if you're not purely, passionately in love with what you're doing. So make sure that connection exists. And your investors will dig deeper to make sure that connection exists. Number 2, hire great people, and harder, obviously, fire people that are not working out. Very important to fire people that are not working out. And it's like you do that because if not everybody's going to work out. The interview process is not a perfect process. It will never be perfect. You can only figure out whether somebody is working or not once they join you. And coming from the Middle East, that's very hard for us sometimes, right? Because it goes against loyalty and many other things. But it's absolutely the right thing to do for you and for them, because it means there's not a good fit. Of course, you try to make it work, and you try to mentor them, you try to change them, but don't try for too long, because you don't have time. As a startup, you don't have time. I mentioned this before, start with the customer, always listen to your customers, look for real problems to solve, and your solution is to come up with the innovative solutions. You heard this from more than one speaker today. Be agile, iterate quickly. Don't spend a year talking about the idea. Go do the idea. Do, and iterate, and fix. Don't talk. You can't talk at a startup. You need to be moving all the time. That's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to aim your ship in the right way. This is actually a great quote from Jeffrey Moore. Failure and failing are different things. VCs in the Bay Area and at large are okay with failing. It's okay for you to fail. We know you're going to fail. You're in a high-risk business. The chances of you failing are actually very high. You need to know this. Creating a startup, the chances of you hitting it big is only 1 out of 10. Now, with all of the new startups coming left and right, even 1 out of 100, if not 1 out of 1,000, with all this deep pipeline that you guys heard about earlier. failure is okay. What's not okay is persisting in your failing ways, right? You need to learn from what you're doing and adapt and improve. And if you don't do that, now that is unforgivable. And VCs will never forgive you for that. A very brief story here. Though we had a lot of faith in Cloudera and what our business is going to be doing, when we launched this company, our original idea was about building a cloud service, hence the name Cloudera, by the way, a cloud service where companies upload their data and then we do the computation in the cloud for them and give them back results. Within 4 months of creating the company, even though we had lots of conviction about that idea, it was very clear it's not going to work. And we needed to adapt, which we did. So very, very important to adapt and learn from your users and from your customers as you grow. And then last but not least, for sure, make sure that your idea can make money, otherwise you're not going to survive, right? I don't want to say that's all it's about. I mean, for me as an entrepreneur, what is really about is about creating a great company. But you're never going to create a great company without money. So they need to go hand in hand. So with that, I'm going to conclude, and I'm sorry we don't have time for questions. I can take the questions later on. You guys are going to get these slides later. These are some must-read books from me. I mean, they're no-brainers. All of you heard about them. I highly recommend that you read them again and again and again during your journey, because they have so many good lessons in them. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amr Salahieh, and I would like to tell you about a life pursuit of mine, which is really starting companies from scratch. And I've been in the medical device industry since I've come to the US. I've always been interested in medicine, and I've always been wanting to I was lucky enough to start with a company called ACS, which was one of the very successful early startups in the Bay Area, which is a hub for medical device companies. And very quickly I learned that what it's really about is it's about the startups. And one of the things that used to happen at ACS was there was an intercom system. This was before mobiles and all that kind of stuff. This was a big company, and very quickly people would sort of make the joke. They would say, "John Smith gone," and they would hang up. And everybody would hear that. And what is this? What is this person gone? What does that mean? And I quickly found out it was the best people. They would leave, and they would go to a startup. So it piqued my curiosity, and as quickly as I could, I tried to join startups and be part of startups. Eventually, we did that. And I got involved early on in a very researchy project that was very interesting, but didn't go anywhere. Very important lesson that you heard earlier. We were a solution looking for a problem, and very lucky that I learned that early on in my career. Eventually, I started a ShifaMed, which is let's see here. There we go. So in 2008, I had left a company I had started, which was in clinic, raised money as a percutaneous aortic valve. And I wanted to do something different than I had done before. So my first company, the company prior, we had basically did a standard thing. We raised money from angels, but very quickly we had to raise a lot of money, so we went to VCs, and essentially gave all the technology to that one company. And in our industry, it's probably the case in some other industries as well, companies usually do one thing with the thing you sell them to. You know, they can't leverage the technology in different areas. So when we did that, there was not an ability for us to really leverage it in other fields and other areas of interest. So when we started ShifaMed, the idea is we develop the technologies, keep the intellectual property in the incubator, and license it for field of use, for specific applications. So that way you can leverage it. You learn from it, you reuse the same IP, and start another company and hopefully sell it. So that's what we started, and that's really the idea. So in 2010, we were working on one company. Something happened, and we became aware of a new procedure, a new technique for treating hypertension. It turns out that if you disrupt the communication between the brain and the kidney stops releasing various hormones that increase blood pressure. And for many people, who have high blood pressure that is not controlled by drugs, if you disrupt these signals, and if you ablate these nerves, you bring down blood pressure dramatically. And this is a sort of a revolution in our industry. We became aware of this technology, and we were working on something different. And we had raised money through angels, and we were actually doing quite well. We thought we were quite happy with ourselves. And we became aware of this new technique. We had sort of inadvertently solved a similar problem. Because we had a structure that was very flexible, and because probably we were not VC funded at the time, we turned around. We stopped the one project, put the team in a different project, and started Maya Medical. So we started in 2010. As we were developing the technology, our main competitor, the pioneers in our industry, they got sold for a large amount of money. So it became very, very competitive very, very quickly. And we knew we had to really deliver faster than anybody, because we were not really well funded. We were not a large company. It was a very difficult time. This is 2010. The money was not available, essentially, and especially for medical devices. So we had to execute really fast. And we had to really address both the US market and outside the OUS market. So I'll just briefly describe the technology that was sold to Medtronic. It's an electrode on a catheter, which you apply from the femoral artery up into the renal artery. You push it against the wall, turn on the RF, and you burn. And you're trying to create burns and a pattern of burns so that you completely ablate the renal nerve. The procedure they came up with as a concept of ablating the nerve was really the innovation, and doing it with a catheter. But the technique or the product was really a first generation. And that's somewhat of our expertise, is to really identify areas where people have really spent a lot of time, where pioneers spent 10 years figuring it out, and really come up with a better gizmo. And that's what we went after. So the procedure they do, they have to apply 6 to 7 plus burns. Each one of them is 2 minutes, time-consuming, dependent on anatomy of the patient, and also dependent on the skill of the physician. And we knew we could do better. And so they end up with a pattern, a spiral pattern that prevents the stenosis and essentially avoids complication. What we did was really, we want to do the same thing, but we wanted to do it better. And we wanted to address the limitations that they had. We wanted to simplify the procedure, improve the reproducibility of it, leverage standard techniques that these physicians are used to, and really leverage everything they've done. All their clinical science, we wanted to be able to say, look, we're doing the same thing they are with just a better tool. We had the opportunity, and we did develop another technique altogether, but we wanted to make sure to really stay really fast and get to the market as fast as possible. So and that's what we did. And we ended up with a device, which is a balloon, which is a very standard thing. The interventionalists in our industry use balloons every day. They don't usually, these types of interventionalists don't use these electrodes. So we really gave them a tool they're familiar with that assures success. When you inflate the balloon, it has good contact with the artery, and you can do the ablation faster, safer, because it has irrigation, it's more controlled, and it's just a one-shot deal. You turn it on 2 minutes, you're done, put it on the other side, do the other treatment, and it's over. We have a generator associated with it, software and all that kind of stuff. And we had to do all of this very, very fast. And that's really what we did. We are a very, very small team. Everybody worked extremely hard. We were in the house for most of the time, and we've only been out of the house 1 year. This is what happens to the pathology. You can see on the top corner here, this is the area that's ablated. We didn't ablate the whole area, only one part of it, which is what you want. You can see also on the left, the healthy nerve that's not been ablated. On the right is the nerve that's been ablated. You can see the cells have been decimated, and there's not many of them, and no cell membranes. Anyways, in general, the way we did things was sort of guerrilla. Somebody mentioned this earlier today. I I was lucky enough to have partners who knew what they were talking about and had worked with them before. That's Fred Khosravi and Motasim Sirhan. And we really didn't have board meetings. We talked when we needed to. It was a very informal thing. We knew exactly what we wanted to do, and we just, we worked at it. The team and I worked, and Fred and Motasim gave me advice when we needed to on financing and strategy. We never had enough money, and which was probably a good thing. And we deliberately did that, and also we didn't have the means. It was a bit of both. Because when you don't have much money, you're forced to really come up with the best ideas, the simplest ones, the likely ones to scale properly and to be more successful. And that really, I think, was actually a very helpful thing for us. So we never had enough money to last more than 6 months. Typically, we were either run out of money or about to run out of money in just a few months. Yeah, we didn't even plan. We didn't have a budget. I mean, in general, we spent a lot of time budgeting and planning a year budget and a 2-year budget and so forth. We never bothered with this. We knew competitors were out there. You really didn't know what they were doing because everybody's stealth mode. But we knew that if we just moved faster, we wouldn't have to worry about anybody. And that's sort of what we did. Our project plans were no more than 3 months forward or 6 months. Because we were essentially aiming for a very specific target of here's what we need to do in the next 6 months, and we don't do anything else but that. And if we did that, then it's easy for us to figure out the next step, and that's the approach we took. We've raised our monies through angels, and raising money through angels and friends and families is important, but it's also a bit tricky. You don't really want to go to too many of your relatives because things may fall apart and your uncle now has lost a lot of money, and it can get bad. So in general, we really focused on industry veterans, physicians who knew what we were talking about. They were experts already. I didn't have to explain to them what we were doing. They're distributors in our industry. I actually specifically went and targeted industry friends of mine who had recently had successes. And that's a good trick, by the way, for people who are raising money. If you know somebody who just made a bunch of money, go to that person. They're very generous for a month or two. They don't know what they're doing. They will give it to you. And they're the best investors. They don't ask questions. They don't bother you. The problem with it, though, is you'll never stop raising money. And it can be tedious. And that's the price. The VC route is different than that and has some advantages and disadvantages. One of the things we tried to do, of course, we tried to get money from VCs. But often, not all the time, VCs are behind the curve. That's, I think, is a bit of a known fact. They would tell us things like, you can't do this. You can't sell a company just on OUS sales. Well, we knew that was important. We were solving it, but they just never paid attention to what we were doing, and then they didn't really see it the way we did. So we did everything to survive. So we even designed another product for another startup and made money that way. So, and every which way we did it. For a year, my team and myself, we didn't have any money. We didn't have any salary. So, and the money we raised, I never thought we could raise this much money from angels. I thought I had raised $1 million from angels. But to raise 3, and that was our Series A in convertible notes, which, by the way, is a very good tool. And as we got close to the acquisition, that's it. We never had to do a Series B, and the rest were convertible notes that really, so those guys, they only made 1.5x or 3x because we knew we were selling the company. We just needed to bridge it for the sale. And that also turned out to be a very useful tool for us. Just an illustration of sort of how we survived. We never had much money in the bank. But we were always hitting our targets. So as soon as we were either hit our target or we were close to the target, we went to our friends. Hey, look, it's looking good. Let's get some more in. And they did, every time. Because we delivered and we stayed with it. And they saw what was going on. And we were lucky, of course. I mean, you have to be lucky. It's almost, it's a mandate. Find yourself a way to be lucky. And the way to do that, in my, at least, experience, is you have to put a team together. and you sort of hover around. You're doing something, and it's good, but all of a sudden something else turns up. But your team is active, it's good, it's working, and you can shift. And nobody can match that speed, because by the time they come up and identify the same problem, they have to put that team together. That takes at least 6 months, if not a year, if not more. So you sort of have to position yourself in a place that allows you to take advantage of things that you can never control. And I think I've seen that happen, it's really, it's one of the better ways. And so that's really, as far as how we raised money. We did our first in humans in December of 2011. We got our CE mark in 2012. The acquisition was completed in April. We just started commercializing, and they announced it just actually a few days ago. Today there's over 100 people, probably 150. When you get bought by the large organizations, it's mind-boggling how many people and where they are and how inefficient it is. But there's a lot of people working on this stuff. And it also, not only did we sell them one technology, we actually sold them 2 technologies. So when the VCs were asking about the US market, they were right. But nobody believed us. The funny thing is, even the company that bought us, they didn't believe in the second technology. Today, they're very happy to have it because it actually looks very promising. Today, ShifaMed is actually doing really well. We're very happy and lucky to be where we are. We're working on a number of different companies. And the companies are not companies, they're projects. They're an individual or 2. And we've established a system where we leverage the infrastructure. We have a quality system where all the different companies are leveraging it. We have an accounting system that everybody's leveraging it. But the most important thing, of course, is a very, very talented and very experienced team. And the way that we're doing things is that we're actually hiring without even knowing exactly what we're going to need these people for and how they're going to be leveraged. We just know there's a lot of stuff, and we really want the best. And often they're people we have strong and long relationships with. But that's not always the case. So every person we've hired, every one of them, either didn't have a job or started working with us as a consultant. Fundamentally, we never took risks. I mean, I couldn't hire somebody who had a good job because I thought we could go out of business 2 months later. So how could you take somebody who has a really good income and their family and so forth and put them in sort of a risky position? So we hired people who were really good, and we were lucky. And it was a good thing to start a company in a bad economy because there was a lot of people available. And we basically tried everybody out. Some people didn't work out. And here I mirror what Amr is saying. The team, it doesn't always work out. So if you try people out, you have a chance to make it work. And also, people are good at different things. So you may have thought this person was good at this. In this trial period, the first few months, you realize, okay, this is where this guy is going to fit. This lady's really good at this. And you can reconfigure. Or they're not part of the organization. So things are doing well. But we're trying to keep the same spirit. We're still trying to starve the projects and really focus the people on the technology development. And that's it. Thank you.